Hello folks, welcome back to another video. This one is going to be one that I've been asked to do quite a lot by different people. It's going to be a breakdown and like a post-trail gear review of everything that I used on the PCT, everything that I took with me. Some of it didn't get used, so this is going to be a good opportunity to find out what worked for me and what didn't work for me. If you haven't seen my original gear video yet, I will pop a link up in the top of the video. That runs through everything, almost everything that I took with me. I did make a couple of last minute additions and I did swap a few items out whilst I was over there, but that goes through most of the stuff here in more detail, weights and why I was taking it and things like that. Disclaimer, I am not an ultralight hiker in the slightest. Whilst weight is a consideration for me, it doesn't rule all for me. I am more bothered about comfort and function. One thing to note, there's been a lot of questions about my electronics and my camera gear. None of that is going to be included in this video. I'm going to do a completely separate video for the electronics and camera gear because it definitely deserves it. So if you're not subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll know when that video comes out. I'm hoping to have it done in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to do the bigger stuff first, like the backpack, the tent, and things like that. So I guess one thing to note for me is that because I attempted the PCT in 2019, and I've got a bit of experience with longer distance hiking as well, I kind of knew what to expect in some ways, and I had a good idea of what would work for me and what wouldn't work for me. So I was going into this with some experience. A lot of people, as I did in 2019, go into it completely fresh to long distance backpacking. With that in mind, let's get on with the video and see how things fared, shall we? All right, first off is my backpack. I said I would do the big stuff first. If you've seen any of my reviews of this backpack and watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that I absolutely love it. It's an SWD, which is Superior Wilderness Designs Ultralight Long Haul 50. Don't let the word ultralight fool you because it's not an ultralight pack. It's easily a good couple of years old now, is this one, and it's still the most comfortable pack I've ever owned and used. I only had 2 complaints about it on this trail, and they're both what I would term minor things. The first is what's been happening to it for a long time. It's been delaminating on the interior, so the waterproofing is going. Well, I mean, you can see it's completely gone there. It's completely come off. Not everywhere inside is like that. There's certain patches that are, there's certain patches that aren't. But basically, I used a large plastic pack liner to combat that problem, and that kept everything inside dry. The other issue I had with this pack, and it's only a tiny issue, but it seemed to happen when it was loaded down and quite heavy with stuff inside, like when I was leaving town with a longer food carry. It would creak a lot, and that's because I think it was the plastic buckles creaking with the weight on the actual webbing. Seem to be at the tops of the shoulders here. These ones seem to be doing it the most. The sternum strap was also guilty of it at times as well. Apart from that, I've got no complaints. It's an extremely comfortable backpack. It's got a ton of utility with it. As you can see here, I've got things strapped to the sides. I've got the shock cording on the front that I put on myself. That allowed me to carry my sleeping pad on the front here. You'll have seen it if you've watched the videos of the PCT. I had my sleeping pad on the front, and then I had a pair of Crocs strapped across the front as well. A lot of people can't, but I could reach round to the side pockets whilst I was wearing the pack and pull out a water bottle from there. Some people say they can't do that. I seem to be able to manage it quite easily, to be honest. On the backpack, I was using a water bottle pouch on that strap, and then excuse me, on this strap here, this shoulder, I was using this, which is a Hyperlight mountain gear shoulder pouch pod. It's Dyneema. I've had this for ages and it's still working brilliantly. The zipper still works fine. It's a water resistant zipper. And my phone fits in there perfectly. And then this little pocket on the front, I was using that for my hand sanitizer, and I was also using it as a trash pocket whilst I was on the move. It's a really, really cool thing, and it's kept my phone pretty much bone dry in some serious downpours. So this is from a company in the UK called Treadlight Gear. I took 2 of these with me because I thought they might not last the entire trip. One of them disappeared in Julian after 77 miles on trail because the people who did my laundry for me thought that I didn't need it. So I did the rest of the trail. This lasted me the whole trail. There is one hole in the bottom and there's some tiny, tiny little tears in it here and there. But for a plastic bag to last you that amount of time, I think that's pretty impressive, especially considering the price. It's a very, very easy and cost-effective way to add some waterproofing to your backpack. Didn't need to in the end, did I? Tent. Tent is strapped up here. I'll put a picture up on the screen of what it's like when it's all put up. Again, if you've watched the videos, you know which tent I was using. It's the Tarp Tent Dipole 2 Lithium. It's a very big tent for one person, but I do like my space. I like to get all my gear inside my tent with me on a night. I don't like it in the porches or anything like that. It also helps with packing up when it's wet and packing up when there's bug pressure outside. It made a huge, huge difference to me in those times. I don't know if I'm going to do a separate video on the tent, so I'm going to give you some very quick thoughts on it now. I do really like it. I think it's a brilliant dry weather tent, an excellent dry weather tent, and it takes a small amount of rain perfectly fine. It's good in wind. It's very robust in wind, I found, especially when you've got the guys, every single one of the guys put out. But where the tent falls down for me is when you encounter seriously wet weather. There was one day when it rained for, I think it was about 15 hours straight. It just, I'm not even joking, it didn't stop once, just 15 hours of like torrential rain. That was in the desert, and then there was a couple more pretty nasty rainy days further up the trail as well. And each time this tent leaked inside in the corners, same place in all 4 corners, there was water coming through. And also what I found was it's got vents. So at either end of the tent, at the head end and the foot end, it's got mesh, and then it's got like a panel of sil poly, I think it is, that you pull up, or sil nylon that you pull up over it to close it up. I found that if the rain's driving into them and it lasts for anything longer than maybe 2 or 3 hours, the panel just gets saturated and water does start coming through. It's not a lot, but it's enough, especially if it's raining for, like I say, longer than a few hours. The other thing is, if you're using the tent without a separate ground cloth, like a piece of Tyvek or something like that, then any moisture from the ground just comes straight through the ground sheet. That's what I found anyway, when I was using it without that in the desert. There was a lot of moisture buildup on the ground sheet on a morning usually, and some mornings I'd be waking up with the bottom of my sleeping pad damp. So I started using a piece of Tyvek underneath it, like at the end of Oregon, and that pretty much fixed the problem. Not a huge issue, but something to bear in mind if you are thinking about using it without a ground cloth. Apart from that, really happy with it. Sometimes a little tricky to put up, but that's probably me not learning very well. But sit-up height, room inside, no complaints about that. It's cavernous inside. I could easily get my backpack in. I could have probably had another person in there as well, with as long as as well as my backpack. So pretty happy with the tent overall. That white thing there that you see tucked down the side, that is the piece of Tyvek that I bought. I bought that in Oregon somewhere, Ashland. I bought it and started using it every night after that under the tent, and that cleared up the problems with the water coming through the floor. So that was a simple fix. Stuck out here are my two trekking poles. They are Lecky Micro Vario TAs, and I bought these specifically because they fold down that small, so that when I go to the airport I can actually put them inside my backpack and they're not going to get confiscated, because that is something I've heard happen quite a lot. These have been absolutely fine. They've been strong as anything. I've really enjoyed using these. They've got basically cording that runs through them to keep them all together. So then you just basically pop them together and then you extend it out, click it into place, and then you can adjust the height with the clip there. One thing that does happen with these, because I've had two pairs of these now, if they get wet and they get dried out, if you don't dry them out properly, when you're taking them apart like this, you can find they get very, very difficult and sometimes impossible to pull apart. And then the other thing that is attached to the backpack still is my foam sleeping pad, which wasn't in my original gear video. This is just a cheap thing. It's a Roban zigzag slumber, and I cut about 3 sections off it, I think. So basically, when it was laid out underneath, what I did with it, I used it underneath my air mattress, basically to protect it. I didn't want that popping in the desert. There's so many sharp things in the desert that want to pop your mattress. So that was the main thing for that. But I will say that I carried on using it the entire trail. I used it sometimes when I was stopped for breaks. I just got this out, popped it off the bag, laid down on it, and it was beautiful. Used it when I cowboyed, which was one night. And I used it to sit on just like this as well quite a few times. But I didn't feel any cold from the ground for the entire trail. Not one night did I feel cold from the ground when I was using this and the Neo Air X-Lite mattress. I think it worked really well. When this was laid under the X-Lite, because I'd cut 3 sections off it, basically I tried to get it so it was running from like the base of my neck down to just below my butt, basically. So it was running the length of my body. My legs were fine without that underneath. It didn't need it, but that was where most of the pressure was coming from my body on the mattress. So that's what I wanted protecting. And it did a real good job. Also stopped my sleeping pad, the X-Lite, from slipping around so much on my tent floor. So I think these things have got so many uses when you're hiking that if you can find somewhere to carry it on your backpack, it's probably worth taking one, at least for me anyway. What else? What's next? We'll do the bear can next. So this is something, if you do any hiking in the States, you're probably very, very aware of them. You've got to put from Kennedy Meadows south until Kennedy Meadows north, pretty much. You've got to put all your food and your smelly stuff in a bear can. Now, you'll notice I'm sat on one already. This is a BV 500. This, I'm going to get shouted at here by a lot of people, this is a BV 475. Technically, this isn't legal to use where I used it. It's not been approved. Now, that is because it's just a new addition to their lineup and it's not gone through the process of being approved yet. There is no difference to this. It's made by the same company, it's the same materials. The only difference is it's not quite as tall. I managed to fit between 5 and 7 days worth of food in this, Please bear in mind that I wasn't eating enough. That is something I know for a fact. And there were a few times on longer food carries when I started eating more that I couldn't get anything more than 5 days worth of food in this. The main reason I chose this one, not because I was being an ass and I was like, oh, I don't care if it's not compliant. Basically, I wanted to be able to carry this like that in my backpack, and this one wouldn't fit. I didn't want it on the top of my pack because they run a risk of coming off, and I spoke to at least 3 people where that actually happened, and one of them was going up a pass in the Sierras when it happened as well, and she watched her bear vault just roll away down the hill with all the food in. So, yes, I was extremely naughty, but I apologise. I was never challenged about it. In fact, the whole trail, I was never permit checked once by a ranger, which I was quite disappointed about, to be honest. My permit's got no writing on it. But yeah, no, it worked fine. Quite heavy, but there's quite a few different bear canises on the market, but this is the one that I'd used before. The BV500, I was familiar with it, so once I found out this fit in my backpack horizontally, it was a very tight squeeze, but it did go in horizontally. That was what I decided to use. Sleeping mattress. Needs a wash. This is the NeoAir, the Thermarest NeoAir X-Lite NXT. I did used to use one of these, and then when it developed a leak near the valve, I changed to a Nemo Tensor all season, and for some unknown reason, I just couldn't sleep on it. I tried it quite a few nights, and I just was not getting to sleep on it at all. So I went back to what I know, the Thermarest, and it's been absolutely fine. Like I said before, just when I was talking about the foam mat, used this with the foam mat underneath it, didn't feel any ground cold at all. Tried a bit of bird poo on my arm. Thanks, bird. And this was the Flextail Tiny Pump X2, which I used to inflate it. It's got the little rubber adapter on there. And this one, even though it is kind of big and it feels heavy, it feels heavy, but when you weigh it, it actually isn't heavy. So there you go. Also doubles as a lamp. So this did get a lot of use, and it never ran out of juice. I know for a fact that from testing it, I can get about 25 to 30, if I'm pushing it, inflations of this mattress out of this if I don't use the torch. So I knew that this would last for a good 7 or 8 days easily whilst I was using the lamp on it as well, and then I could get to a motel or a hotel and get it charged up. Just nice. I don't like blowing the mattresses up with the inflator bags. I find it quite tedious and awkward. This was just really, really convenient, so I definitely take one of those with me again. I do like them. To keep everything organised in my backpack, I tried a couple of new things this time. There would be the Hyperlight mountain gear packing pods. These are the Dyneema. This one is a 13 litre size, and this one is a 9 litre size. So this is still got in it exactly what I was using it for. It's got my sleeping bag in there, and it's got my inflatable pillow. The only thing I will say about these is just around the zips, I don't know if you'll be able to make it out, but the kind of, I don't know if it's the stitching or the Dyneema, but it's just getting a little sort of wispy and sort of hairy, for want of a better word. I don't think it's causing any problems, but it's just something to keep an eye on. The actual stitching, can't see any problems there at all. Once again, the zipper on it is water resistant. Didn't have any problems with that either. And having my sleeping system in here combined with the plastic liner in the backpack just meant that my sleeping system was guaranteed to be dry, basically. I actually really do like these. You can see the shape is basically, that's how I put it into the backpack, like that. So this flat side would be against my back, and that would follow the contours of the backpack. It's not made for this backpack, but it fits in really, really well, and it uses a lot more space inside the backpack than I would say a normal sort of like dry bag or dry sack. This one is exactly the same shape, it's just slightly, when you get it packed up, it's not quite as tall. So I was really impressed with these, and I shall continue using them because they're just really, really easy to use, convenient, and they make sense, and they make packing your bag really, really easy. Can't imagine not using them now. So that brings me on to what is in here, which is a Cedar Summit Aeros inflatable pillow. I've had it for ages. I think it's maybe got a bit of a leak somewhere, but it did fine on this trip. I couldn't travel without one now. I've tried like using something like this and putting my puffy inside it and things like that. It just doesn't work. I do like an actual inflatable pillow, as much as I say that they're not that comfy. I'd rather have it than not. And then the sleeping bag, I've just basically told you about that. So I started with my Feathered Friends 20-degree bag that I've had for 6 years. And what I found was in the desert section, I was getting cold on a night. Basically, the bag just wasn't a 20-degree bag anymore. It was about a 40-degree bag, I would say. So I thought about what I was going to do for a while, and I pondered. And in the end, I went with a Feathered Friends 10-degree bag. That was brilliant in the Sierras. I was just warm all the time at night, didn't feel the cold at all. Couple of chilly nights, but never at the point where the cold was stopping me from getting sleeping, or never where I was like, oh man, it's cold tonight. I was just warm. After the Sierras, I would say that the 10-degree bag was probably overkill. I decided just to carry on using this one for the rest of the trail and put up with being a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit hot at times. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. I don't regret it. I'm glad I had it. And now I've got a decent winter bag that I can use here at home as well. So that is that. This other one, the other Hyperlight Mountain Gear pod, as I said, it's a 9-litre, and this is exactly the same as the other one. I use this for my clothes, so anything I wasn't wearing clothing wise was pretty much in here, apart from my puffy jacket that wouldn't quite fit. So all the clothes you see laid out here, pretty much everything was inside this. Spare socks, shorts, shirts, things like that. Fit in with room to spare, to be honest. In the end, what I was doing when my air mattress wouldn't fit in this one anymore, I started putting it into this one as well with the clothes, and there was still room left over in this. So superb things. There are some other sizes available. As I say, that's a 13-litre. That I've got the sleeping bag in, and that's a 9-litre. Onto the subject of sleeping once more. This is my silk sleeping bag liner. This wasn't taken for warmth. This was taken more with hygiene in mind and stopping my sleeping bag from getting dirty. If you've watched the videos, which I hope you have, you'll probably see that my legs are filthy some nights. Rather than wiping myself down and things like that, which would be the normal thing to do, I just got into this, which stopped any dirt from getting onto my sleeping bag. And this was just so easy to throw in the washing machine with everything else every week when you get to a hotel, or whenever you get to a hotel. Perfect. I really enjoyed using that, and I always will use it. Two last things, sorry. This here is a tent ground sheet, a ground cloth, and originally, you may remember, I was probably going to take my X-Mid 1 on the trail, and this I bought to go with the X-Mid 1. So it's basically just a one-person tent ground cloth. I took it with me because I thought if I was going to be cowboy camping a lot, it would be good to put down on the ground. At that time I didn't have my Tyvek sheet, So I thought this would be good to use on the ground to protect my sleeping mat when I was cowboy camping. I cowboy camped one night on the entire trail. I used this once and I carried it for a long way before I decided to get rid of it, because I kept thinking, oh, maybe I'll use it, maybe I'll use it. No. So that was a silly idea and I didn't need it. I used it once in probably about 1,000 miles, I would guess, is how long it took me to get rid of it. That didn't work and I ended up posting that away. And then the other thing I forgot about almost was my fanny pack. It's the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Versa. Really converted to using fanny packs now, especially this one. I really like it. You'll notice I've got the actual waistband on it, which I wasn't using before. That is so I can use it like that when I'm traveling, like on the plane, and I used it like that in towns as well sometimes. Other than that, my backpack's hip belt fed through the channel there, and that's how it kept attached. It's got 2 compartments. This kept most of my electronics in my camera. My video camera was in here, and then the front pocket I used for snacks. Just about big enough, I would say. Pretty much spot on, to be honest with you. Kept stuff dry pretty nicely. Not totally waterproof, but kept stuff dry pretty well. About, I would say a couple of 100 miles from the end of the trail, both zips failed on it. I've had it for quite a while, so you think basically these zips have seen a heck of a lot of use just on this trail, never mind where else I've used it. But the front one now won't seal properly. And the top one, it does have 2 zips on it, two pulls. One of them works and one of them doesn't. But like I say, my video camera was in here, so whenever I videoed a segment, I was opening this up, unzipping it, taking the camera out, videoing, putting the camera back in, zipping it back up. I was doing that probably 30 times a day sometimes, if not more. So it's had a heck of a lot of use, even before this trail. So I don't mind. I think I've got my money's worth out of that. Right, that's gonna do for the bigger stuff. So I'm gonna leave it now and we'll move on to the clothing and see how I got on with the stuff that I took with me. All right, so I'll try and start from the ground up. So first off, Topo Athletic Mountain Racer 3 shoes. Again, if you've seen previous videos of mine, you'll know that I absolutely love this particular shoe. I got this pair in Washington somewhere, can't remember the name of the town, but a viewer and a family friend kindly sent these to me, paid for them and sent them to me, which was really nice of them. I'm really upset they don't make these now because these are pretty much the perfect shoe for me. Really good tread, really sticky, really grippy. They dry pretty quickly, they're comfy as heck, and I had very few problems wearing these particular shoes, the Mountain Racer 3s. Along the trail, I did try a pair of Topo Athletic Vistas, which I'll probably buy another pair of, to be honest with you. They were quite nice. And then I also tried a pair of the Mountain Racer 4, which I will not buy another pair of. I hated them. They didn't do my feet any good at all. They were extremely uncomfortable and just not happy in the slightest at all with them, to be honest with you. So the 3s, I'll be using these until they're worn out. So yeah, they worked really well. Socks wise, I don't have any to show you, but to start with, I was using an Injinji liner sock, which is just like a toe sock, and just a really thin one. But I haven't got any to show you because they've all basically gone into holes. They don't last long at all. They last, I would say they lasted between difficult to say, two to 400 miles a pair maybe, depending on the sort of terrain and how much grit and dust and sand there is around. What I find is that the grit and dust and sand gets through your shoes, and even though you've got 2 pairs of socks on, it works its way through and it ends up being like sandpaper. And the bottoms of the injinges were going quite often on the balls of my feet and on the heels. They were like sanding through to holes, and then the toes as well. The actual toes themselves were getting holes on. I've come to expect it now. I know they're not going to last long, but for me, it's worth buying them and using them because I didn't have a single blister the entire trail at all. And that was using an Injinji liner and then these darn tough quarter hikers over the top. These darn toughs, I'm trying to remember how many pairs I went through. I've got 3 pairs here, and I think I maybe went through another 3 pairs. The good thing with the darn toughs is they've got the lifetime guarantee, so if you can find somewhere on the trail, that's the difficult thing, finding somewhere on the trail that will do the replacement scheme, because darn toughs say they're guaranteed for life. So if you get a hole in them, just take them along to somewhere that does the exchange scheme and you get a brand new pair. A lot of places don't do the exchange scheme. One pair, I will say, one pair that was brand new that I took with me from here, from the UK, they'd holed by the time I got to Wrightwood in the desert, which isn't really all that far, and it was a big hole in the heel as well. So I was a bit disappointed in that. Apart from that, the holes I got in them were pretty small, but they were nearly always on the heel. You're going to recognise them. These are the Patagonia Strider Pro 5-inch. This is an older model pair, which I think is why it lasted so long. The newer ones don't tend to last as long as these, from what I can gather. These, unfortunately, did get a rip in them right at the end of the trail, and then when I was on my road trip, I managed to make it a bit bigger as well. Apart from that, no problems with them whatsoever, apart from getting dirty. Really comfy, nice little zip pocket on the back, which I never used because I always had a backpack on, and then these little stretchy pockets on the side. They're really good. I didn't use underwear this time because these have got the brief liner built into them. What I used to do was cut this out, but this time I decided to try it. For the most part, it worked all right. I did find that in very warm weather, I was sweating a heck of a lot, and basically that was getting incredibly wet and causing a few chafing issues now and then. In that area isn't really what you want, so that's the only thing that I've got to say about them that's bad. These ones, you probably recognise, were my town shorts. I did wear them maybe once or twice whilst hiking, just because they were not available, because they were getting washed or something. Unlike a lot of hikers, I carried a spare set of town clothes with me, or what I call town clothes. Basically these shorts and a long sleeve version of this shirt. People will say that's overkill, you don't need to do it, that's your own personal preference. My personal preference was that when I got to a town, I wanted something clean to change into that I could use straight away without having to go and do my laundry in my waterproof clothes. It's just, I mean, I didn't see any problem with carrying the extra weight of a small pair of shorts and a t-shirt. So they were worth the wait to me, definitely. I would do that again as well, probably, unless I was really going for the ultralight mindset, but as I said, that's not me. These are the Farpoint Outdoor Gear Alpha leggings, and I brought these with me to sleep in. Overkill, I would say. I used them a few times in the desert, and that was when I was struggling with the sleeping bag that wasn't keeping me warm. If I'd have had the 10-degree bag, these wouldn't have been necessary at all. I probably wouldn't take these again, I'll be honest. They were nice when I did wear them. I would say unnecessary. I don't think I used them more than 10 or 15 times. Probably wouldn't take them again. I forgot about these. So these were the Wild Sole flip-flops, sandals, whatever you want to call them. I wanted them to work, but I guess I am just not suited to these. I found them quite painful to wear, and they moved around a lot. I couldn't get them to fit properly on my feet. They moved around a lot on my feet, and I got that I didn't want to wear them, and I was just carrying them unnecessarily. So these also got mailed away after I'd only used them about twice in 700 or 800 miles, and I ended up buying a pair of Crocs because they worked for me, and I knew they worked because I use a pair at home. So yeah, I should have known. I think I've tried something like this before. Not for me, but that's just my personal preference. Didn't work. Waterproof trousers. I think I used them less than 5 times the entire trail, and 2 of those times were for warmth reasons rather than wet reasons. So what I did was I put these on first, these Farpoint Alpha leggings, then I put these on over the top, and obviously that insulates and that stops wind and rain. What I found was it was incredibly effective. I had those on at the top of Mount Whitney at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was wearing everything that I owned on the top of Mount Whitney. I was still cold, but I did that twice. Did that on Forester Pass as well, and it's amazing, or I was amazed at just how hot I got just like that. So they did that job really well, and they did the job of protecting me from rain well as well, but only a couple of times. I'm always dubious of taking these. If it was a shorter hike, I probably wouldn't have taken them. It was the fact that it was a 2,500 mile walk, and you just never know what's going to happen. I just thought I'd take them. If I'd have had a crystal ball, known what the weather was going to be like, I'd have said, no, I don't need them because it's not going to rain much at all on the trail. What else do we have? This you'll have seen a lot in videos. This is the Farpoint Alpha 90 hoodie. I think they call it the cruiser. I slept in this every single night. I think, yeah, pretty much I did. Hiked in it a couple of times, but not much because it was just warm all the time there anyway, nearly this time. But this is absolutely brilliant for sleeping in. Absolutely love it. Kept me warm all the time. Sometimes a bit too warm. But yeah, glad I took this. Very glad. Would definitely take it again. I mean, it's lightweight. It compresses down pretty well for a fleecy top. And it's breathable as well. It lets a lot of air through. So these are the Farpoint Alpha camp socks. I took 2 pairs with me, and my intention was to put them inside each other and use one pair over the top of another pair. I do get cold hands and feet, and I knew that going in, so I was worried. I needn't have been. I used these maybe 10 or 15 times the entire trail. And to be honest, I probably could have got away without using them. So that was probably unnecessary. What I did at one point, I mailed away 1 pair and I kept 1 pair. I could probably have mailed away both pairs, to be honest with you, because I think I maybe used them once or twice. These are the Farpoint Outdoor Gear Alpha Drifter gloves. Like I just said, I get cold feet and hands very easily, so that's something I worry about on trail. These are just a little pair of fingerless gloves. I would always take these just because they weigh hardly anything and they pack down to hardly anything as well. They just take the edge off, and I did use those quite a bit, to be honest. Especially I found on a night in the tent when I was doing videos on my phone, editing videos, my hands were getting cold quite easily, so these helped. These were the black diamond gloves that I took with me. Shouldn't have bothered, to be honest with you. I used them a couple of times. They're not waterproof, not really all that water resistant either, to be honest, as I found out. And what was happening was the gloves were getting wet and then the wind was blowing, and it was just basically like having a block of ice on your hands all the time, and your hand was just getting colder and wetter. Not really a good idea taking them. I didn't carry them the whole way. I mailed them away. Microfiber towel, really, I think it's one of the Airlight ones from Sea to Summit, I think. I can't remember the brand now. But this was worth its weight in gold for wiping off the tent and a lot of other things, to be honest, as well. So for the space and the weight it takes up, I would definitely carry one of those again. You can get smaller ones, but I even used this. You can see how big it is, or how big it isn't. It's that size. I even used that to dry myself a couple of times when I got showered in various places. They are extremely absorbent, handy things to carry around with you. Sea to Summit bug head net. Yes, you need it. That's pretty much all I'm going to say. Didn't use it a lot, but when I did use it, I was very glad of it. For the space and the weight it takes up, I think that's something that you cannot hike without, especially on the PCT. I had the biggest problem this time in the Sierras, coming out of the Sierras with mosquitoes. Oregon and Washington weren't bad at all. I was so surprised. I was expecting horrendous things from Oregon especially. My neck tube that I wear around my neck, I rarely hike without one now because they're so multifunctional and they stop a lot of heat. You'd be amazed how much heat escapes round here when you're sleeping especially. So just having something like this round your neck while you're sleeping really helps. You can pull it up over your face as well if you want to while you're sleeping. While you're hiking during the day, it stops a lot of sweat from running down your body from your head. So I do like these, and I've just got used to hiking with one now. You can put it in cold water, pull it down over your neck, and then basically it drips cold water down your body and cools you down. So really useful thing. Something that you can't really do without is a pair of microspikes. These are the Catula microspikes. Didn't use them a massive amount, to be honest with you, but you notice the difference. The peace of mind they give you when you're trying to negotiate snow patches or snow crossings and you don't have spikes. You're always kind of, or I am anyway, I'm always stepping a bit gingerly and a bit warily. When you've got these on, you just plough through and you've got a much better chance of making it through without any incidents. So that's something, again, once I got out of the Sierras, I sent these away and mailed them away because they are quite weighty. Waterproof jacket, again, not something that got used a great deal, but I was glad of it when I had it. I could have probably gotten away with a lighter weight one, but it's the age-old thing. You pack your fears, don't you? This one is an outdoor research one, and the big thing for me that I wanted was that it had pit zips. You got a lot more ventilation coming in when you need it. So I actually quite like that jacket. That'll be getting used quite a bit in the future, and I was glad that I took it in the end. This is my Arc'teryx Cerium LT down jacket. There we go. I didn't use this a great deal on trail either. It's not particularly heavy, but it's quite bulky, and there were a few times when I mailed a box ahead of me of stuff that I knew I wasn't going to use on that section, and quite a few times this was in there. I didn't do a lot of like hanging around at camp. I was either hiking or in my tent usually. As a result, I didn't use this much. I think there were a couple of mornings when it was a bit chilly and I put it on for the first hour or so while I was hiking. In the Sierras it got used a little bit, and then maybe one or two times in the tent on an evening when it was pretty chilly. But I know for a fact I used this a heck of a lot more in 2019 when I hiked. But this time, I've got to say, it spent most of its time in my bag. I could maybe have even gotten away without it by using my Alpha fleece top and then putting my waterproof jacket on over the top, but I'll never know now. I was originally going to hike in this, which is just it's a Patagonia button-up shirt, long sleeve button-up shirt. When I got to San Diego, I think the heat really surprised me, and because my ears are so big, they burn really easily. And the back of my neck burns really easily as well. I didn't think this was going to protect me enough, so I started looking for a sun hoodie instead. This didn't get used at all, hardly. I think I wore it maybe once or twice in a town, and again I carried it with me for ages before I realised that I'm not using it, I don't need it. So this actually got mailed away after being used maybe 3 times. Didn't even hike in it once, I don't think. So that was pointless. The sun hoodie, I actually started with a Mountain Hardwear Crater Lake sun hoodie, and I really liked it. It did me right up until Bend in Oregon is when I changed it, so it got quite a way up the trail, but I'd lost that much weight. Also, every time I washed it, it was stretching, so basically in the end it looked like a sundress on me. It had also worn through on each shoulder. When my backpack strap had been rubbing it, it had worn through 2 holes on each, a hole on each shoulder, so it needed replacing. And the only thing I could find in my size in Bend was this Arc'teryx one. To be honest with you, I do like it. The material is maybe a little bit thick. I found it pretty warm, definitely a lot warmer than the Mountain Hardwear one that I was wearing. The smell, I think it coped with the smell a little bit worse than the Mountain Hardwear one. The Mountain Hardwear one seemed to do really well with the smell. This seemed to not do quite as well. But the fit on this was pretty good when I was very thin. And it was, I've got to admit, it's a nice top, but as I say, even in Oregon and Washington, it was probably a little bit thick and a little bit heavy. I would have liked to have found another Mountain Hardwear one that I could use, but there was very little choice last minute in Bend, so that's what I used. Cap, baseball cap. This worked out really well. I knew it would. It's lightweight, it's very breathable. It's a Sunday afternoons Vaporlight Stride. I don't think they make them anymore. And the good thing about this one is it's got little channels down the side where you can feed your sunglasses in when you're not using them, so your sunglasses stay locked in and they're not going to come off. I mean, the peak isn't very big, but I found it was plenty good enough for what I wanted. This was a Patagonia Houdini windbreaker, and I actually used this a few times. I'd probably take it again, even if I only used it 1 or 2 times on a trail, because it just packs down so small. You can see like that, it packs down to like the size of an apple pretty much, and it's really lightweight as well. And it does just stop like 90% of the wind. What I also found was it was stopping mosquitoes biting, which was really, really impressive. But it is like wearing a plastic bag. It's not very breathable. So if you're exerting yourself, especially if you're going uphill, there was a couple of times I had this on coming out of Sierras, going up big climbs, and I was sweating like mad. So that's the bad thing about it. But no, it's a nice little thing actually. Quite impressed with it. No regrets taking that. My Dirty Girl gaiters, which I don't think I used on the PCT in 2019, but this time I had them on all the time. They're just attached to your shoes to stop any grit and dust getting in there, or stop a lot of the grit and dust getting in there. So yeah, pretty much every hiker you saw had a pair of these on, of some description. So I pretty much count them as a necessity on the PCT, just because there is so much debris flying around, grit, sand, dust, whatever it is, even twigs and stuff like that on occasion. So yeah. So it's a Nock Vecto X water carrier. I started the trail with my Nock Vecto, and it developed 2 holes down the side. So in Etna, I managed to find an outdoor store that sold these Vecto X's, which are the heavier duty version of the Vecto. And yeah, this has been fine since then. No punctures or anything like that. Found it a little bit more difficult, a little bit slower filtering water. Seems to be more difficult to squeeze through. My Sawyer squeeze is sealed up in this bag because I've cleaned it and I was going to put it in storage, but that is the Sawyer Squeeze. The one I took with me I actually replaced because no matter how much I cleaned it on trail, it just didn't seem to be doing a great deal. The flow was pretty bad. So I got a brand new one in Bishop. That is something that I definitely would take with me. I haven't in the past, but I would again. This is the cleaning coupling for the filter that allows you to back flush it on trail using a smart water bottle or something similar. And that was needed and used a heck of a lot on the trail. Every time I got to a town, I would make sure I was tapping the water filter and back flushing it to get most of the debris out of it. Turk's long-handled spork, yes, I'd always carry something like that with me. I've tried the folding ones and the shorter ones, and I always come back to this one just because of the long handle. Took my Petzl spather knife. I didn't use it a great deal, to be honest. I thought I would be cutting more food with it, like cheese and things like that, but I didn't really use a lot of cheese on trail. Obviously, I would say you wouldn't be able to get away with not having a knife on the PCT of some description. Maybe if I was to do it again, I would take a Swiss Army knife with a few little bits on it. You don't need something with a huge blade, or I didn't anyway. So I would maybe consider taking a Swiss Army knife with a little pair of scissors on. There are a few times when I found that I could have used a little pair of scissors quite easily, but didn't have them. So yeah, that might be something I might swap out in future. This thing is my canister stand, so my gas canister would clip into that. I'm quite clumsy. I've knocked over my stove whilst it's been cooking, excuse me, a couple of times. This minimises the chance of that happening, creates a bigger base. It's not particularly heavy, but you can't really do much with that. It'd be good if it went down to half that size, but it's nice. It meant that I could stand my stove inside my tent whilst it was cooking with the doors open and not have to worry about like it falling over. So yeah, I probably would continue to use that in the future. A little mini Bic lighter. I actually didn't use this once because my stove has got an ignition on it, but I'm that paranoid about that not working that was taken as a backup. I mean, let's face it, it's not huge and it's not heavy, so I was happy to carry it, but never used it. And then the stove, this did get used obviously pretty much I think every day. This is the Pocket Rocket Deluxe from MSR, and that's how it folds out, and then the igniter you've got on the side there. This one is maybe a little bit overkill for the PCT. It's the one I had that worked, so I took it with me and it worked fine. 2 Swedish dishcloths. I could probably have got away with just one, but I did end up using 2 just for cleaning up. And then I've got a Tokes titanium pot, which was 375ml. I used that for drinks, and then I used this for food. I could probably get away with not taking that one, but I like to have a drink whilst I'm eating my food, and obviously if you've only got one pot, you can't really do that. I didn't use the lid. I could have probably left the lid at home because I don't think I ever used it. I'm not sure, maybe once or twice. Again, this is stuff that I've had for years, so it just keeps getting used each time. And then that there is the pouch that went into. It's a Dyneema pouch, and when you pop that in and pull the drawstring, it just keeps everything together, keeps the lid on. And then this was my food bag to start with in the desert, and then it got replaced by the bear can, and then I was using it as like an overflow food bag, and then eventually I decided I didn't need it, so this got mailed off as well. I mean, if I was going to do it again, the trail, I'd consider carrying the bear can from the start and just carrying it the whole way. It got sent away halfway through. So I did have these. This is a Noakes bag, So it's like a giant Ziploc, basically, a giant heavy-duty Ziploc. This became my backup food bag when I sent my food bag away. So what I would also do with this is I would put 1 day's worth of food in it and put it right at the top of my backpack. I would do that on a night usually, so that my food for the next day was all in one spot and handy to get to. And that worked really well. I do like using this bag. This is a smaller Noakes bag that, as you can probably see, I was using for coffee. It was a lot difficult in times to find the little single serve sachets, so I was buying like a jar of coffee and tipping it into this and using it like that. That was a little Noakes bag that I used for my toothpaste tablets, which I actually wouldn't use the toothpaste tablets again. I'd use proper toothpaste because I don't think they were doing my teeth any good, I'll be completely honest. So yeah, that's something, wouldn't do the toothpaste tablets again. Just a little bag that I used for, I think I had my dried mango in here quite often. Got addicted to dried mango, so that was just basically like a reusable Ziploc bag, and you can wash it out as well. This is the mesh bag that you get when you buy a soya squeeze or a soya water filter, and I was using this on the outside of my bag to put avocados in and carry on the outside of my pack, and then also occasionally to put wet clothes in to dry on the outside of my pack. Maybe wouldn't bother with that again. That was a bag that I had some basically bits and bobs in, like pencil, notebook, things like that, credit cards. Small microfiber towel for hygiene purposes, shall we say, when I'm brushing my teeth, things like that, washing, whatnot. That got used pretty much every day, to be honest with you. Toothbrush and nail clippers in there, that was my little sort of personal hygiene bag. Lip balm with sunscreen added into it, that was needed. That got used quite a lot. I should have used that more, to be honest with you, definitely. This was my electronics bag, and I used a lot of electronics on trail, and this bag was not really convenient. Yes, it kept them dry because it's Dyneema, but I need to find a better way for me of keeping my electronics, and every time I wanted something, basically, I had to get everything out of this bag to find it, and it was just a pain. And I need to find a better system for that. And then that there is my first aid kit. I say in first aid kit, I think I used an elastoplast once, little tube of Vaseline. I also had in there a lot of ibuprofen, which did get used a lot towards the end of the trail because of my tooth. This is a Noakes bag, like I just mentioned, but this one's my trash bag. So the good thing about it is that you can just empty it out easily when you get to a trash can, and you can also turn it inside out and wash it as well. The last one I used as my trash bag lasted me 5 or 6 years, so this one has got a way to go yet. But what I was doing was, I found a good way of doing it was I'd strap it to the side of my backpack so that my trash was all in one place, and it was on the outside of my pack. So yeah, I do like those bags. This is basically my repair kit. So I've got some shock cord in there, some spare plastic clips, the plastic toggles that you get for your backpack. I've got some Dyneema repair tape, some of the tear aid patches, some duct tape, a couple of tiny little carabiners, and some mesh repair patches as well. The only thing out of there that I used was the mesh repair patches. That was pretty pointless carrying that stuff around, but I guess better safe than sorry. I don't know. I guess if something did happen to your pack, like if something did break, you could always find what you needed out there to repair it in a town. But I'm just paranoid that way. I could probably do without that next time. And then the only other thing we've got left is the poop trowel, which I've got to admit isn't the most comfortable thing to use. It does hurt your hand, but I've found that scraping the ground rather than digging was a little bit more effective with this one. That's that. And then my sunglasses and the case. The sunglasses got a bit scratched up, even though they were in the case when I wasn't using them. It's just the way things go, unfortunately. But yeah, I couldn't do a trail like that without a pair of sunglasses. That's a must for me. So as I say, that is everything, guys. I'm not going to go through my electrics. There'll be a separate video on that, so please keep an eye out for that. I hope that I've not missed anything off, anything glaringly obvious that I've missed off. If there is, please pop a comment in the section below. If there is something I've missed that you want to know how it worked out. If you've got any questions about any of the stuff that I've had here, please again pop them in the comments below. I think on the whole, I was pretty happy with the stuff that I took, especially after I'd mailed away the shirt, the flip-flops, and the couple of other bits that I said about the ground sheet. I think I got my gear down to pretty much the sort of bare necessities that I needed and that I was happy to carry. Some people, as I said, they wouldn't be carrying around a spare pair of town clothes with them. I would say Washington, by the time I got to Washington, I kind of knew what I was doing, and I'd kind of got things worked out. So things that I did really enjoy, I will just say, with these packing pods, they just made packing up so much easier. You know, your sleeping system went into one, your clothes went into another, and then bang, straight in the bag. Also created a really nice, like, firm base to the bag. So you had a good chance of packing it decently, and they took up all of the dead space in the bag as well. That's one thing that's come out of this trail that I'm really, really happy with, those packing pods. We shall leave it there for now, folks. Thank you for sitting through that one. I hope it's answered some of your questions that you had. I know that there have been a few people contact me and a few people comment on other videos saying that they wanted to see something like this. So hopefully that's answered your questions. Q&A video, I will be doing that at some point and getting your questions answered about all the ones that you asked me on there. So keep an eye out for that one. Until the next one, guys, take care of yourselves and happy trails.